Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to CvCISO podcast number 84. I'm your host, Andy. Today we have the founder of FR Secure, Evan Francine, the executive director of Security Studio Academy, Dave Tuckman, and also Jordan, the extraordinarily well-groomed Darlington. Our guest today is Tom Welke. He is a partner and VP at RSM Solutions and one heck of a great guy. Before we get to that, a couple of quick items. The CvCISO program begins April the 6th.
No, that was accurate. It begins.
Uncomfortable pause.
It's just
Can't feel my legs, sorry.
the
Great opportunity
anticipation.
to level up your skills in risk assessment, information security, and leadership. No prerequisites, no attendance taken, and amazing guest speakers. Also, our CvCISO Level 3 courses are available, and the API security course is live as well. March 30th, we have a new offering. New certificate program will begin, the Certified Security Studio Risk Assessor program. We're very excited about it. Dave will be teaching it. He's amazing, and it's going to fill up quickly. So reach out for more details. That's it for coming events. Take it away, gentlemen.
How you guys doing?
Right.
That was a
Doing well.
fantastic intro, Andy.
Good.
I feel like
I'm going to be a professional soon. They're going to hire
Coming
me
back
away
from
from here.
coming back from vacation, you hit the ground running, didn't miss a
With
beat.
margaritas.
We have a special guest joining us today. We're going to talk about jobs and job market and finding jobs things, which is, I was just thinking so our guest is Tom Welke, and I'm excited to hear what he has to say.
Hey guys.
One of the things for me, I haven't looked for a job in like a long time. And so when I hear people tell me about, the struggles that they're having trying to find jobs and everything, it's hard for me to put myself in their shoes, I guess, nowadays.
Mhm.
But then there's also like this, I'm not in the weeds of it, so I can see the stupidity, honestly, in it.
Do you
People
participate?
asking for skill sets that just don't exist.
Right.
You're asking for unicorns that don't exist.
Right.
And even if they did exist, they cost a lot of money. So the price that you're willing to pay for it, you see, I think, job hiring managers not knowing what they're asking for.
Right.
They can't align skills with actual needs within the organization. So it's just a damn mess, Tom.
Do you participate much in the hiring process anymore, Evan?
No, they don't allow me to do that.
Yeah.
How do you think I got in, man?
Exactly.
But you're right, Evan, in that but Jordan or Dave, if you wanted to say something, I didn't want to butt in if you guys wanted to
No, I was just gonna add, appreciate your perspective or where you're coming from on it, Evan. Through the ISACA chapter, we deal a lot with students,
Mhm.
that are just fresh coming into the market, and we're seeing a lot of them that went in for several years for a degree and coming out and finding this sort of climate in the job market, and how much, and honestly, the role that they went into school for doesn't exist anymore, and or it doesn't exist right now.
Well, it's crazy, man, because like I think of it as it's a job market, right? And think of it as like when I go to the supermarket. When I go there, I'm looking for specific things. I'm
Right.
looking for the highest quality, specific thing at the cheapest price. And so if I were looking for a candidate today, I would have a specific list of things that I need this person to do. I'd probably have a roadmap for them on what they need them to grow into as the business grows. I mean, I would have these things and then I would go to market and I'd write a rec specifically for what I'm looking for. And then I would take all the candidates and it'd be the same way I'd be shopping. Like this one looks like the best apple of the group and I can get it for 20 cents on the dollar. That's the one I'm going for. But I think we overcomplicate all this stuff. And I
We
think,
do. You're
and you're,
absolutely
you're,
right.
you're messing with people's lives, man. That pisses me off.
Right.
Yeah.
You bring up an amazing point, and I'll just jump in here. Jordan, if you wanted to say something, didn't want to
Oh,
jump
I
in want either. to hear what you have to say. So here's an interesting thing. So I've got 24 years of tech recruiting under my belt, been in the tech sector since the 90s. So I've seen a lot of cycles. This cycle is really unique in that the job market sucks. I think we need to just throw that out there. The job market kind of stinks. So some people think, am I the only one having trouble? No, you're
But
not.
when you say job market stinks, tell me more about how it stinks. Like what makes it stink?
Sure. What does it smell like? Yeah, what does it smell like?
What kind of
Well, you guys
stink are
have
we talking
dogs,
about?
right?
Are we talking about an Evan kind of stink after having some quesadillas?
Well, we all have we all have pets, right? Probably. So
Because
you
I
don't
do
want.
hear that a lot. I hear people say like the job market stinks or this stinks or that stinks, but that doesn't tell me enough.
Yeah. So let me kind of color that in a little bit. So you're seing a couple things happen. You're seeing fewer roles being posted, more candidates per role. So there's more competition for each role. The good news is this. So I'm going to put a dash of sprinkle of good news on this. You're starting to see an uptick in activity starting mid-November into December. And now as we kind of clear them into the first part of the year. So you're starting to see some positive signs. You're seeing, so what made it stink? So we'll go from what made it stink to what we're starting to see now. You're seeing people with insane levels of experience. Oodles and oodles of CISO experience. They've been a CISO for this company, this company, this company, this company. They've got multi-vertical experience, or you have people with security architecture background that are just stellar. And it was taking them 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, not to get a job, but just to get in front of somebody. So I look at this I looked at that as an unhealthy market. Now again, I'll pivot to the good news. The good news is so in unhealthy markets, you see common themes. We saw this in 2008, 9, and 10, early 2000s. Remember, .com boom and bust. We saw it in a different level 2 or 3 years ago. Remember 2 or 3 years ago, as long as you have a pulse, you need to vomit during an interview, you got a job and a raise. That wasn't healthy either. All of those unhealthy markets came to an end. I'm abundantly sure there's people listening to this podcast that hired people at that time where it's like, I just need a butt and a seat. So, okay, can you code? Do you smell bad? Did you take a shower? Okay, good. You at least took a shower. You showed up. You got clothes on. Okay, let's go. That was unhealthy. Just like 2008, 9, and 10, that was unhealthy. Remember oil and gas, when the oil and gas space was like the barrel of oil was like $1? That was unhealthy too. So the oil and gas space went through a kind of a depression. That was unhealthy. That came to an end. So the one thing I know absolutely for sure, there's not much I know for sure, but this is one thing I know for sure. Unhealthy markets come to an end. So signs of unhealthy markets are, you see really great talent. I mean, objectively, really great talent taking 3, 4, 5 months, not to even get a job, but to get somebody to talk to, right? Unhealthy market is when somebody goes through 6 or 7 rounds of interviews and they say, we're going to put the road on hold. An unhealthy market is when you see this big disconnect between HR and IT hiring managers, where there's this huge disconnect. They couldn't spell DevOps if their life depended on it, right? Still remember this. I'm looking for a C-pound guy that knows Kubernetes. It's, again, to your point, I want a C# guy that knows Kubernetes. Okay, tell me more about that. Or I want a data guy who also can be my DevOps guy. Mm-hmm. Okay, really big disconnects. You started to see that about a year and a half ago to about, I'm going to say September, October, early November last year. Then there was like this little switch. You're starting to see more activity. And I got to be honest, we're not out of the woods yet, but I think we're starting to see, and this is my thinking. If you're a CEO of a $500 million ball bearing company and you're still struggling with your supply chain in November of last year, or you're a VP of IT of that $750,000 million company that makes syringes or pharmaceutical research products, that president or CEO goes to your IT director and says, well, how are we going to manage this? How are we going to manage things if we see this in terms of price increases, or what can we accommodate? And that director of IT said, well, I don't know. Or your VP of supply chain said, oh, I don't know. Yeah, sorry. I don't buy this argument that companies were caught flat-footed in the late next year because of tariffs or this or that. If you got your team together in February or March of last year and said, okay, we got to accommodate this. What happens if our prices go to here or here or here or here? Any director of supply chain worth their salt, any director of IT worth their salt, within a month would have all kinds of data points to think about. You would have been prepared. So I don't buy this argument where people are saying, oh, there's a tariff stuff. I don't really buy that argument. So what I saw.
Well, that's why, my father, he gave me a lot of good advice. One of the things he said about markets is, you're not the market.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, if I wanted to succeed in something, he also had a saying that, winners focus on winning and losers focus on winners.
Yes.
And so absolutely. I tried to be the best, most marketable person. I want to be the best, whatever it is I do. And with that, I think comes confidence. I think a lot of the reason why we're in this particular passion, correct me if I'm wrong, shitty leadership.
You bring up
from a business perspective.
You hit it right on the nail. So it's where it was going to go next, is that you're starting to see people like C-level, VP level hiring manager, it's late last year, November, October, saying, you know what? We're not going to plan anymore. We're just going to execute. I don't care about all this scuttlebutt about this tariff, what's going to happen here with, screw it. I've had it. We're going to do this. And I applaud those people because I could see it in the hiring managers that I talked to in October, November and December in particular, where it's like, screw it. We're going to do this. I don't care what the ramifications are. We planned and planned and planned and planned. That's why I was saying, if you haven't been able to plan, well, you're probably out the door. They're saying, screw it, let's just do it. So to your point, and this is where I'm glad you brought that up, Evan, because this is where leadership really comes in from a IT exec standpoint. I think we need to come to a realization of this, is that there has been this big disconnect between HR, recruiting, and IT hiring managers, whether you're in information security, whether you're in infrastructure, app dev, doesn't matter. There's been this big disconnect. Now, I'm not going to throw blame and say, because some people will say this, HR is the problem, they're a bunch of idiots and morons. No, that's not the case. There's plenty of HR people that are super smart. So I'm not going to throw my blame there. But what I am going to say is this: how often have the people listening to this podcast, for example, you're looking for a DevOps guy, or you're looking for a mid-level security architect that does this and this and this. Okay, who have you talked to outside of your org to figure out if that's even realistic?
AI.
Yeah, exactly. Or I'm going to say, I'm going to use Anthropic or ChatGPT or Grok to kind of search through this. Well, here's the thing. This is where I come in. So been doing this for a long, long time. So I'm the guy who can call you on your, you know what?
Bullshit.
No. Yeah, there you go. I wasn't sure how liberal we could be with the language.
Yeah, welcome to the podcast.
So
Andy, you didn't hit the beep.
So I'm
Wouldn't
the
do it
person
anyway.
who can, with authority, call you on that and say, okay, if you want this and this and this is what's going to cost. You're not going to get this. You could get this and this and this, but you're not going to get all of these 10 things. And I think so often, right, IT leaders will go to their HR department and say, and this laundry list, but they don't know how to call you on your crowd and say, that's not going to happen. That, and in tandem, and again, I think there's this disconnect where IT hasn't educated HR in terms of, okay, these are the things that I'm looking for. If they don't have this, that's okay. But these two, if you start seeing things like this, that's what I'm looking for. Or some of my favorite IT execs that I work with will really crystallize the reality versus, okay, these 4 or 5 things, these are the things I got to have. These 7 things, if I don't get them, the zombie apocalypse isn't going to happen. Right. And I think you need people from the external side now and to come in and say, okay, here's what's realistic. Here's what isn't. And you all know this. There are people in my seat, external recruiting, say, oh, this is the best candidate you'll ever talk to ever. And then you talk to that person, it's like, holy cow, not even close. Right. So there's that going on too. So you have this confluence of challenging things going on. Now it's been going on for a while, but it kind of has come to a head where it's like, okay, you have external recruiting basically focused on one thing: high fill rate. Fill, get out of commissions and move on. I focus on a low failure rate as opposed to a high fill rate. So it's a completely different thing.
Hey, Tom.
Yeah.
I got a question for you. So, and for folks that don't know, when you're doing the recruiting, your compensation comes from the hiring company. So it's not an out-of-pocket expense for the person
No.
seeking employment.
Yeah.
So when in your role and for where you sit, you're going to see that job description that the company comes to you with.
Mm-hmm.
How realistic do you see those being? And how much of that BS or misguidance do you call out from where you sit?
It's usually a 40-60 split where 40% is real, 60% is in some form of some sort of fallacy or shit, like you said. So here's what I focus in on. So I'll kind of walk you through my process with a hiring manager. Give me your 30, 60, 90. Now, some people look at me with a puzzled face. What's a 30, 60, 90? Okay, then we got a problem. 30, 60, 90 is 30 days. What do you really want to see this person doing? 60 days. What do you really want to see this person doing? 90 days. What do you want to really see this person doing? Because you know this, in hiring, you're going to know in that first roughly 21 days, is this person going to work out or not? So you map this out in the job description. Don't make it a mystery. Say in 30 days, I'd like to see you do this. In 60 days, this is what I'm looking for. 90 days, this is what I'm looking for. Instead of 20 bullet points of John and halves, there's usually an 80-20 rule. And that there's about 20% of those, maybe 30% that are, oh my goodness gracious, the world's going to fall apart if I don't have these. There's about 70 or 80% that are like, you know what, the world ain't gonna fall apart if I don't have this. And if you do have that 20 bullet list of everything's got to have, reevaluate. That's like what you were saying, Evan, right? That's where you come into this challenge where I need a person who can dance on a head of a pin, knows Sinatra really well, and can also do my DevOps work.
Right. Well, and
And I
I've
think
found
that's
over
where
the
this
years,
disconnect is, and that's where I come in. Is I'm that realist. And again, I don't know if anyone see this, but I got this pretty big non-existent hairline. Um, 24 years of tech recruiting. I've been in the tech sector since the 90s. So you see a lot of cycles, and you see a lot of crap.
right.
So because of that, I can call it when I see it.
Yeah.
Well, I think, and it seems like there's just a lot of people that are in management positions out there seeking, and they don't know what the fuck they're looking for.
No, it's because again, this goes to this whole idea of the network, right? That this is that karma thing. I'm your buddy when you have no budget. That helps you to realize, okay, maybe my head was really up my butt. Maybe I wasn't seeing things the right way.
So we
I
see
had
them
this
do the same thing
perception.
when they buy new tech. It's like, why did you buy that?
Right.
Well, and they're like, well, because it's that. I'm like, okay, what does that do?
Right.
How is that going to further the mission? How's that going to further the business? How are you going to make the business more money with that? And if you talk to a lot of IT people in particular, because I was sat on this, I get invited to stuff, but I don't get invited back. And this was another one of those where it was a roundtable.
I like to think I don't want to become only a club that would have me as a member.
Yeah. Well, it was a roundtable of IT executives, CIOs from large companies. And the whole theme of this thing was speak the language of business. And everybody was talking about this shit, but it was all just buzzwords. And I was the token security person in the roundtable. And they're all talking, and I'm just observing. And then one of them notices I had talked, and he's like, Evan, what do you have to say? And I'm like, I don't think any of you speak the language of business.
Uh-huh.
None of you. Like,
Boom.
oh my God, what? I go, the language of business is money. It's accounting. That's the language of business. And what I hear a lot of you complaining about is it's hard to keep up. It's impossible to keep up with the unrealistic technology demands of the business. It's impossible to do all these things. And then you point fingers at other people. But really the problem is you. Had you been speaking the language of business, they would have known that their demands were unrealistic. And if you want to know the person who speaks the language of business, look at the guy or the lady sitting in the office next door to you. That's the CFO. They speak the language of business. When they say they can or can't do something, everybody's listening. When you go to a board meeting, it's financial reports up the yin yang because that's the language of business. So as a technologist, as somebody who wants to be IT leadership, how does this help the business, right? This position that I'm hiring, it's not just to fill another damn seat or fill my budget. How does this drive the business? How does this make the business more money? And when you start to speak that kind of language, then you find that it's a lot easier to speak to HR.
Right.
Because they understand too, like how this will all fit together, and it gets you out of your damn seat. Because I think a lot of times we just shoot ourselves in the feet and you see technology people thinking that because they're really smart. I'll give them that. And so they let this tech thing, and they find it like, I can't hire somebody, or you find somebody I do get a lot of people that reach out to me for coaching, like, how do I get a job? And you got to sell yourself. I mean, you have to communicate to the business or whoever how you're going to bring value to the business. Regardless of the skills you have or the experience you have, will it be valuable to the business? Will they be able to make money from what you bring? We've always, in my own hiring, when I did do hiring, it was junior level positions. I would rather hire for the intangibles. I don't want to hire for I don't even care if you can spell security. I'll teach you how to spell security. You're dependable. You're honest. You've got integrity. Man, I can work with all that and make you into somebody awesome. For the high level people, I didn't really want you necessarily to bring experience to the table, because in our industry, a lot of times I have to unlearn you shit because you bring a lot of baggage to the table. And what I don't want on my team is we're marching in this direction. You be the person, well, we used to do it this way. We do it that. Seriously, get on board. Just get the shit done that I need you to get done. So with the senior level positions, it was more, can you bring value at that level? Regardless of, you can probably bring value at that level with 1 year experience. If you can think critically, if you can take emotion out, use logic. I don't know. It frustrates me so much because you are dealing with people's lives.
Right.
Yeah.
You bring up a
And
fascinating.
incompetence, I guess, is the one thing that seems to be killing it.
You bring up a fascinating point, and I'm willing to bet, Jordan, Evan, and Dave, you've all kind of come into this where that EQ piece is so very important. So in that job description, so here's a pro tip.
Right. EQ, you
Here,
mean emotional intelligence?
Right, exactly. So pro tip, if you are putting together a job description right now and you're going to post it over the weekend, here's what you do. Half of that job description, and I do mean half of it, the very top of that job description, before you even get into skills and things like that. I had been doing this for a long time. I write my own JDs from scratch. You can send me what HR sends. That's fine. I'm going to rewrite it because I've been, again, doing this for quite a while. The half of that job description should focus on emotional intelligence. Half. And if it's not, you're not doing it right. Because here's what you want to look at.
I agree.
Here's what you want to look at. So how I write them is I'll say, okay, limited drama, limited ego. If you think the world revolves around you, go back to TikTok, right? I'll say things like,
Jordan's got a TikTok mug. Jordan, show him.
Didn't make me think of anybody here.
Quick side note, this mug is special to me because someone gave it to me. It says TikTok famous at Jordan Darling, and they spelt my name wrong.
well, really? Can you?
Why would
Sure.
they?
Can you bring it up? Put the
There you go. I see it.
Yeah, you can't really read.
So no offense,
Not
Jordan.
helping.
But what I'll say is I'll put in here, this is a place with limited ego and limited trauma. So if you think the world revolves around you, go back to being a social media influencer. Also, this means that these are the kinds of people you'll be working with. No one here has an ego the size of a planet. The another bullet point would be something like this. This place has limited micromanagement. So people love hearing that. I will say people love hearing that. Limited micromanagement. But this also means you don't need to be micromanaged. There's a flip side to that coin. Sometimes I'll put in there, the people that are hired here is typically stick around for a long time. So if you spent 6 months here, 6 months here, 9 months here, 6 months here, probably won't have a fit. That half of that job description, the first half should be, who are you guys? In terms of, who are we? Speaking a human voice, I can't tell you how many times I roll my eyes when somebody gives this corporate lawyer speech. We are this and this and this, and we're dedicated to this and this and this. We have a great culture. Okay, back up. Culture is now what I call a candy word. It looks good on the outside, but there's no food value. Everybody says they have a good culture. That's a Twinkie word. Looks good on the outside, limited food value. So that first half of that job description would be, who are you? What fits here? Not from a technical standpoint, but what fits from a social standpoint. That EQ is what you want to hit first. My best, very, very, and people think, oh, this is, I don't know, it's too soft. No. Tom Peters, I'm a huge fan of his. He's got this quote, hard is soft, soft is hard. Hard is soft, soft is hard. Let that resonate with you if you're thinking about this. Hard is soft, soft is hard. Focus on those soft skills because that's the hardest part of this.
Jordan, get that damn smile off your face. What the hell?
I think I know where you're going with that.
Gosh.
We are
There's
all
your-
men
I
after
think
all.
Jordan anywhere.
There's your
We'll see.
emotional maturity. He might be highly emotional intelligent, but maturity, I don't know where that went.
So
I don't know what
Jordan,
you guys are talking about.
what did you have
What are
to
you
do
talking
to
about?
earn that coffee mug on TikTok?
That should be on a mug. Soft is hard.
Soft is
Hard is soft.
But Tom, you remind me of something. My favorite book of all time, and I highly recommend it for anybody who wants to get into business, who wants to lead a business. It's Start With Why.
Yeah.
By Simon Sinek. Yep.
Simon Sinek.
It's about purpose. Purpose. Why am I here? How do I fit into this puzzle? Where do I belong? Because I've worked in, really large companies, and oh my God, it's like, you're a number, you don't
Right.
feel like home, but man, when you feel like you're part of a purpose, you get motivated. Your employees want to do these things. People want to work there. And those are the kind of people that I want. I don't want somebody to work here because you're desperate to find a job and nobody else wants you. And it's the leftovers.
You're
We
right.
have
And
people at FR Secure. We're so blessed because we have a list of people that want to work here.
Right.
And we just go and pull from the list.
He's got 2 other books that I think are outstanding. Leaders Eat Last and The Infinite Game. He talks about military folks, Navy SEALs. You're not going to jump out of a plane as a Navy SEAL because, I got nothing else to do. And I said, I guess I'll give this a try. No, there's a reason why people really do the things they do. So yeah, Leaders Eat Last and Infinite Game. If you haven't read those books or you haven't read Start With Why, it should be number one on your reading list.
Yeah. And that it goes for hiring managers too, because you want to attract the type of talent that's going to fit you, fit your team. And I think obviously we have to get things done, but that stuff seems to fall in line when people want to be there, when people
Yeah.
enjoy it. And you talked about the culture thing. That's another piece of bullshit, I think, in a lot of industry, especially our industry. In information security, this industry, we do a lot of posturing.
Mhm.
We talk a lot of shit, but we can't back it up, because it's like, which makes it very difficult for somebody who wants to get into this industry because it's very intimidating.
Right.
We always talk about, I've got 30 years information security experience and I did this and I did that. And I don't give a shit. Honestly, I don't give a shit what you did. And if anything, that probably goes against you because you also hit on another really key point, and that's ego. Ego, we have the best leader, in my
Mhm.
opinion, Oscar Minks. Shout out to that guy. It's crazy, man, because he has a saying too that your ego is not your amigo.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And good leaders should always be looking for their replacement. Oscar's my replacement. He's better than me, and I fucking love it. Excuse my language,
Beep.
So hire like that.
Right. And what
Get
you bring
yourself
up
out
a
of the way.
fascinating point. So here's the proof in the pudding. If I look across the hiring managers that I work with, the ones that focus on that EQ first, social fit first, they have tenure on their employees that they hire. They keep them. They're not turning them over every 90 days. The people that are there stick around because they like it. The ones that focus, and this is, I should do like a data summary or data dump of this because it's so stark.
Yeah.
The ones that focus in on skills, got to have this in their resume, got to have this in their resume, got to have this in their resume. Turnover is roughly every 6 months. And if you think about it, if you look, and people listening to this, if you look at your last 4 years of hires, do a long, 4 or 5 years of hires, the ones where you said, I got to have this, and this skill, these 8 got to haves that make, against dance on the head of a pen, sing Sinatra, and then do my DevOps work, 6 to 9 months and they're gone. The ones that you focused in on social fit, ask yourself, look, it's clear, look across your team. The ones that you focused in on social fit, where maybe they didn't have everything you were looking for, but good golly, Miss Molly, this guy was a guy that put in front of my VP of finance and not have to take a mail ops. Or this is the guy I could put in front of my VP of marketing and not go back to my desk, find the Maalox pill or the Tylenol and say, oh, good golly, what's going to happen with this guy? They stick around. They stay around. It's clear as day. So this goes to one of the points that I think it was either you, Jordan, or Evan brought up, is that these looking for this purple monkey or purple squirrel or pink armadillo, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Half of that, again, first half of that job description is EQ, because if I look, and you can do this too, I'm not just saying this for myself, but look across your teams. Look at your hiring over the last 5 years. The ones where you said, I'm going to take a risk on this guy. He's really going to fit well. I really feel good about it. Does he have all the skills? No. But Einstein didn't have all the skills either. He stuck around, right? Look again. I needed this skill. I had to look for these 10 things. Maybe you got them. And congratulations if you did. But 9 months in, either they're gone or they're really disengaged. And which is worse? If you got a really disengaged tech expert 9 months in, or if they're gone, both of them are bad, almost equally.
Yeah.
So half of your job description, focus in on that. The other half is those skills. Again, put your 30, 60, 90 in. If you don't know your 30, 60, 90, reevaluate. Yeah. Put in those instead of 20 bullet points of gotta haves. Let's be real, guy. Let's be real. You don't need these things. The zombie apocalypse is not going to come to California if you don't have all these 20 things. It may come to Massachusetts, but it won't come to California.
Wishful thinking.
So
would you structure it that way then, Tom? Like actually structure it as, here's what we expect in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days?
Right.
Yeah.
The key is listen to human voice. So don't send this to legal. Legal will probably be like, oh, I got it. Okay, fine. Squeaky wheel.
Actually,
put the grease on the squeaky wheel. We'll do this, but write it in human voice. Because one of the things candidates can't stand, and I see this all the time, nebulous job descriptions. And that's what a lot of job descriptions say: nothing. A half or 3/4 of a page of nothing.
Yeah, Jordan.
Write it in human voice.
At the ISACA meeting yesterday, there's one guy's been a member of the chapter for years. Great guy, privacy expert. And he lost the gig where he was at because they outsourced a large chunk of the company to India, but he just got a job at another place. And he was sharing that one of the interview questions, it wasn't in the job description, but he was asked, what do you see happening over the next 30, 60, and 90 days in your department? And he's someone's been around the sun enough times that he's being brought in to build it out. So it was, tell me how you see being able to build out this department over those periods of time. And it was really just designed to have both of them understand if they were on the same page or not thing. There are two things I do want to make sure we have time to touch on before we run out of time. And one of them that we can wrap with after is, Tom, having you share some of the job numbers.
Yeah.
And what you've got, and what you've been doing on that, and ultimately how they relate to everything that we're talking about. But before we dive into that, Jordan, if you're willing, you're the one here that just got a new job and went through that whole journey through the economic climate that we are. And it's just if you'd be willing to kind of share what your experience was, what you heard, what worked, what didn't work, and stuff like that, I think that'd be awesome.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. No, as Tom is talking about like those job descriptions, I mean, it's like I've read through so many and that's, yeah, tons of them were just like, here's the legal speak on our culture and stuff like that, that started the whole thing. And then the laundry list of skills, like so many positions I did not even, well, actually I started kind of applying for everything. I was just kind of like, I got to just keep putting lines everywhere. And because there wasn't a whole lot of uh contact, that they wasn't getting interviews, but I would be talking myself out of it because I'm just like reading this thing and I'd start by saying, oh yeah, that's me. Ooh, not so much. Oh, I can't do that. And so even if I did apply, I was just like, I'm not going to get that one. And especially if I'm going to be honest, in the interview, like, yeah, I can't do that. But I was able to get one, and I hadn't, like Evan, I hadn't applied for a job in a long time, so it was kind of like learning how to ride a bike again, and I was able to get an interview at a nice place, mainly because I had a buddy that worked there, and I saw that had something, so he kind of got me in. The interview process was long; it was like 6 different interviews. But then I also had I really only had 3 companies that I actually talked to people, and I was like throwing my name in the water everywhere. That's not the phrase. Throwing my name in the water. But I did my best. I revamped my resume. I wanted to make sure like I had not just like a generic resume, but one that like was specific about what I was looking to do. And so I had a couple different ones. If I was applying for something that was CMMC related, then I had one that was focused on what I have been doing in CMMC and kind of what I want to do. And then I had one for more like information security, risk kind of positions, and yeah, I don't know. I feel super fortunate because I know there's a lot of people that have been were trying a lot longer than me, only to get ghosted, and never even get an opportunity. So I was fortunate that 112 Cyber like reached out to me and it went well. Still, that interview process was long, and multiple interviews, multiple like just but by then I had already had another one that kind of got my feet wet.
Well, is the one that you're at now the one where you knew somebody?
No, the one where I knew someone, I got it all the way to the end, and then the HR person that kind of started the whole gig with me was no longer with the company.
Mm.
And then all of a sudden at the end, I just kind of got ghosted and the ghosted, like they sent me something. I mean, I had to follow up a bunch, and then finally they said something like where it's like, you're not quite the fit. We're still looking for someone that is a better fit or something. And then I did have one interview where they were looking for a unicorn, and I was honest. I said, I can do all those things. This thing, how important is that? Because I have some, whatever. I said, oh, that's a deal breaker. And they said, I think we'll end this. So like after the first call, we just kind of split ways because they wanted everything. And
Yeah. And I have to admit, being an external recruiter, I come across clients like this as well. You ever talk to a wall where you talk to the wall and the wall just doesn't listen? Sometimes clients are like that, where you'll tell them, you're not going to get this. You're not going to get this. Oh, by the way, you've done 9 months of interviews and you still haven't hired somebody. That might be a hint that you're not going to find what you're looking for. But some just choose not to listen. You can talk, like I said, this non-existent hairline didn't just come out of thin air. It's been, so some just choose not to listen. So that
The one that ended after the first interview, like they even admitted, they said the reason this position's open is because we hired someone and then we realized that they actually couldn't do all the things.
Yeah.
And so then they let
Right.
them go. And I'm just like, oh.
This
Good
goes to
luck
that
finding-
point of, if you're just looking at technical skills and what's on that resume, okay, maybe you find somebody, but 6-9 months in, they're either disengaged, gone, or you found out that they don't really have everything you're looking for. Because that everything you're looking for doesn't exist. I'm just as frustrated as job seekers are, because there are times where I'll talk to hiring managers and say, you're not going to get this. How long have you been looking? Oh, I've been looking for 9 months. How many people? Oh, we've interviewed about 24 people. Okay. Hello. Does that tell you something? And a lot of just choose not to listen. There are those out there. So you can talk to your purple on the face, or like as I talk to a wall, either talk to a wall, hey wall, how are you doing today? It doesn't, that's kind of what it's like.
My wall talks back to me.
Oh, really? What kind of things?
Dude, I
say?
was thinking the exact same thing. I was just going to ask if I was
What
the
does
only
it say?
the wall
I don't know.
talks.
Does it say, gosh, you're
Most of my best meetings are with the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes and if I don't like what I hear, I can go to a different wall.
There's like so many fucking walls, dude.
Yeah.
There's white walls, there's brown walls, there's blue walls, there's green walls.
You can almost say the same thing about ChatGPT these days, where you'll put a thing. I've been thinking, that's a great idea. What a great way to think about this. You're right on the right track.
Love it.
You could talk about
It's funny you mentioned
brownies with-
ChatGPT. I had a buddy of mine who's a really close friend who's got a son who's coming out of college with a computer science degree. And he's, what do I do? It's kind of scary for them. And I'm like, it was just friendly advice, especially with ChatGPT, with AI. It's a tool. That's it. It's another tool. And so how can you leverage that tool to bring value to yourself, to your career, to the companies you're going to serve? Don't be afraid of it. Yes, it's going to replace some of the skills that you had. Those have now become commodity, like a lot of the lower dev skills. And probably within the next year or two, probably most, if not all, dev skills, except for like really deep, high architecture type things. So embrace vibe coding.
Right.
Tell your son if he wants to build things, build apps, spend time with Cursor. There's lots of tools out there where you can go and learn how to do vibe coding.
Right.
That will be marketable, because as opposed to, well, I know Python really well. It's not bringing value to the company. They can use an AI to do what you can already do coming out of college. That's why it seems today more than ever, and I know hiring managers disagree, but in some places, the college degrees are becoming more and more and more worthless in the tech sector. It's like, by the time you get done with 4 years, what you thought you wanted to do when you went into this, it ain't there anymore.
Right.
Or it's changed so much, and you just spent 60, 70, 100, over $100,000, when maybe it would have been better spent on just building the skills, spending time on being a really good person.
Yeah.
It's crazy right
You
now.
bring up a fascinating point, because this, again, pro tip for young people that are looking for their next job, or looking for that first gig out of college. In your resume, put the projects that you've worked on in college. Make sure you have some deliverables, something to show, because otherwise you're just like every other person that says,
Absolutely. Set up a GitHub.
Right. GitHub,
and
something deliverable.
show people your
something-
projects. Yeah.
Right. Something that can show what you're doing. But even more important than this, pro tip for anybody that's in your early 20s thinking, what the F am I going to do? The biggest skill, the number one biggest skill that will never be replaced by AI is this. Can you look at things from a perspective of what problem you're trying to solve and working backward from there? Yes, AI can give you the componentry to get to that solution, but it goes from this end to this end. I'm going from left to right as opposed to right to left. right to left starts, what is the problem, and working backward from there. Here is the key. This is what this AI will never replace this. I know this is a Jeff Goldblum quote, so I'll kind of quote him. You got the knowledge without the ability to attain it, without the discipline to attain it. So really start taking this into your brain of what problem you're trying to solve and work backward from there. Don't use AI to solve the problem, because what ends up happening is that you have the knowledge without the discipline to attain it. We all know this, and there's a bunch of people probably listening to this that are like, yes, 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 shout it from the rooftops, yes. But here's what you need to do as a hiring manager to question that, because everybody will say, oh yeah, I can do that. But here's the questions that you want to ask. So, and this isn't me talking, this is some of my favorite hiring managers that have incredible success rates. They'll ask for, give me a situation, whether it was in college, an internship, where this was a big issue and you had to change several times to get to that end conclusion, or a situation where you thought this is the thing we needed to fix. But it turned out, no, you started here, you had to pivot here, you had to make a decision here. There was a failure here. I learned this then, and I went like this, and I changed my view on that, which means I had to challenge this assumption, which means I had to do this, which means that's the answer you want to hear as you're hiring. So if you're a hiring manager looking for somebody, that's how you don't want to ask, can you look at things from a perspective, what problem you want to solve and work backward from there? Oh, everyone's going to say yes. Give gas for really concrete examples. This is the most, number one, this is the most important question that you're going to ask in an interview. Because like you said, Evan, you can teach the skills. Right. And like you were saying, Jordan, all these gobbledygook in the job description, it's like, okay, you went halfway through a job description and said, I can't do that. Probably not worth applying. Just back this up a little bit. You are the kind of person that can take a look. Well, I'll figure it out. Because everyone will say, oh yeah, I can figure things out. But give me some concrete examples. Those two questions of looking for examples of problem you wanted to solve and work backward from there, and how do you figure things out? Give me some concrete examples. Those are the two most important questions you are ever going to ask in an interview. Pro tip to candidates, find that story. Refine that story. Refine that story. Refine that story for both of those things. Problem, working backward from there, and something you learned, something you figured. People will say, oh, I just figured it out. Okay, that's great. I figured out how to play with my cat.
Right.
But give me some concrete stories, some really concrete examples, because that, for a hiring manager, those are the two most important questions you got to ask. Hardly anybody asks them.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that too, because, and that's why, like, set up a project. You can use GitHub and it doesn't have to be just coding, right? You could put all kinds of really cool things into GitHub, because you also don't have to have a job to do this. You can do this as a personal project. You can do this as volunteer work. You can do this as part of your schooling.
Right.
Where you take a problem that you're trying to solve and you're going to create a solution for it. The cool thing about, the GitHub type situation is, when you check things into your repo, you've got this history and you can see, if you're following the repo, how you had to shift, how you had to solve problems that problem wasn't there before, but I made 5 changes to the code. Now it's there and I got to solve this, but what does it do with the other parts of the code? It's this whole thinking out of the box. And we do the same thing. Like when I used to hire penetration testers, on my team, you had to do your first 6 months of projects without Google.
Right.
Because you had to think it. You had to figure it out, because there was so much value back in the days before Google, before the web, when you were out in the field doing security work and I had nothing to draw on. All I had was what was between my ears. It's that same kind of thing that we still need in people.
Right.
But you got to have that. And then when you bring the tools in, I know that you're going to use the tools responsibly. It's not going to be dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Right.
A pen tester with Kali Linux that doesn't know how to think critically is one of the most dangerous things in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
Well, I would expand on some of that too, because it touched a chord with me where, like, and this would be maybe some advice for someone that's out there trying to get a new position. But like there was a lot of them when I was interviewing, a lot of questions about like they wanted to know what actual concrete value what I did created. Like instead of just like I worked with this, they want, okay, and what did that do? Like, what value did that bring?
It's a business case.
And I didn't have a whole lot of great answers right away. Like it made me think that, like, especially if you're young and you're kind of, you're getting this experience, like maybe take the time to write down lessons learned, take the time to to actually ask the questions. Okay, I just helped you with that project. What value did that bring? Like what is the result of what I just did? And start making that list now. Because going back and trying to remember, oh yeah, that project, what happened and what was the impact it made? That was difficult for me.
Dude, it's awesome too, because it's like, because you see a lot of these, I think younger folks, mostly younger folks, or career transition, people new to this industry that are afraid to make mistakes. They're afraid to like break something. I'm like, break everything and put it back together again, because that demonstrates that that you know exactly how these components work, how you can solve problems, solve puzzles. I think because you're not going to get the job just by sitting there. You're going to have to get out there and do something, produce something. Even if you're not producing it for work, produce something. Some of the most challenging problems I've ever had to solve are not even at work.
Right.
It's with my wife, for crying out loud. You want some stories on how to solve, solve arguments, and navigate really, touchy subjects? Shit.
Communication, budgeting, and complex.
But if you share something like that in an interview, that's the cool thing about humor, right? Humor sticks.
Yeah.
So you're going to stand out from every other candidate who answered that same question about tough communication by using some things with your wife that were maybe humorous, but very applicable to jobs. People are people, it's figuring out these, I guess, refreshing ways to sell yourself with things you've already done.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, just before we do
Oh, we got
run,
job data to do, don't we?
Yeah.
I want to,
Sure.
yeah. So, Tom, if you can share what you normally do and how that
Sure.
helps the people you're striving to help, that'd be awesome.
So the first Friday of every month, I put together my analysis of the job market. I'm not an economist. I just play one. So this goes to the whole idea, Evan. What happens if I break stuff? What happens if I'm wrong? Well, you know what? You figure it out. You make the changes and you move on. I've been doing this now for about 2.5 years now, 3 years. Where I'll post this on LinkedIn. So hit me up on LinkedIn. Just hit the follow button on my profile, and you'll see this. You'll see everything my connections say. So hit that follow button. But the first Friday of every month, what I do is I analyze the government numbers. What you're going to see on CNN, CNBC, MSNBC, Fox, what have you. So I hit the unemployment numbers. So in January, the job report comes out for the previous month. So the one that came out the first week of February was for January. One that posts in the first week of January is for December, and so on and so forth. So the one that I posted just about a week or two ago, unemployment dropped to 4.3% from 4.4. The job gains came in at a pretty big whopper of $130,000. 130 job gains. The estimate was 55. So on a top line, you say, okay, things are going well. Like I said, we're starting to see a slight uptick. However, this is where I put in other data that really kind of adds a lot more clarity to this. I analyze ADP numbers. So ADP comes out with its jobs report that same week, usually midweek of the week that the Department of Labor comes out with this. So here's where a really kind of interesting comparison point is. ADP numbers have been mimicking Department of Labor numbers, which is that 4.3% and 130,000 job gains post revision. So here's the thing to think about. ADP, and I'll repeat that, ADP numbers have been mimicking Department of Labor numbers post revisions. I'll add that quote, post revisions. I'll explain that here in just a second. So for ADP, there was a gain of only 22,000 jobs. The expectations were 41 for that same time period for the Department of Labor. Here's the story behind the story, however. Last month, there was a gain of jobs with companies of 50 employees or less. This month, it was 0. So this is why that 50 employees or less is really important. ADP did a study. They said 3 out of every 4 people work for companies of 250 employees or less. The 50 employee number becomes that 250, those companies in that 250 range. In addition, most of the gains, about 74,000 of those gains, because they take gains and losses to come up with an aggregate of 22,000, were in 2 sectors, healthcare and education. So they're really concentrated. And this has been a trend over the last 6 to 7 months. So my pro tip to job seekers, don't just look at LinkedIn and Indeed, but look locally in healthcare and education. Healthcare and education. Doesn't mean you're going to be a teacher. Doesn't mean you're going to be a doctor, but look at your healthcare organizations in your local area. Look at education. So colleges, universities. Yes, I get it. People say, but they don't pay that well. Okay, well, Yeah, that may be true, but you'll have something. And you know what? You pretty much have the best job security you'll ever have in those in especially in education. So let's go back to the revisions. So with every report, there's a revision. So the report that came out just a couple of weeks ago showed revisions for November and December. There was a downward revision of 15,000 jobs, which indicates a rather anemic growth in November and December. The net result is they also did a revision for the whole year, which this is kind of a shocker. The net result is U.S. produced only 1.2 million jobs in 2024 versus the previous estimate of 2 million. In 2025, the labor market showed just a little bit more of an addition of about 181,000 jobs last year. The estimate was 584. So those are really key data points under the data where, okay, here's what we thought were the gains in 2024, 1.2 million, when the actual was far, far less, far, far less than that. Or at 2 million, the estimate was 2 million, the actual was 1.2. So where did the 800,000 jobs go in 2024? 2025, really the gain was 181. The estimate was 584. So those are really key numbers to think about. And again, this goes to that unhealthy market that we were talking about, and that there are people that would look at these numbers and say, wow, there was these many gains in March or April. I just want one of them. Well, guess what? That really wasn't a gain after all. So those numbers were not entirely right. And this is not anybody's fault other than data collection. I've been talking about this for a long, long time. These numbers are flawed because they're based on data collection, and data collection has been really anemic. They used to be in the 70% range in terms of responses they get back, the Department of Labor, to come up with this data. Now it's like 40%. So you got some really soft data. And like you said, Evan, you're dealing with people's lives here.
Mhm.
This is data that affects people's lives. So I hear where you're going on that. I also watched the U6 rate, which is the underemployment rate. U6 are people who are kind of starting to get away from the job market, or they're working part-time where they could be full-time. That is right around 8%. But again, this number needs context. It was 7.5, 7.5 in January 2025. As with every report, these numbers need context. The numbers that came out that looked really good, and I'm not trying to be a doomsayer, I'm not trying to be a negative Nancy here, but these numbers were seasonably adjusted. You'll hear this if you watch CNBC. I watch CNBC for fun. I read the Wall Street Journal for fun. So it gives you a kind of a quirk into who I am. So these numbers are seasonally adjusted. And as you look at those seasonably adjusted numbers, if these weren't seasonably adjusted, there was a loss of 1.3 million jobs in December. But with that seasonality, because what the Department of Labor counts when it comes to seasonal adjustments is those people that work for UPS or in retail in like December.
Mm-hmm.
Now they don't have a job in January because they don't need them. That's what that unadjusted number looks at. This adjusted number calibrates that based off of, okay, well, these people weren't going to be long-term employed anyway. It was a short-term gig through November or December. They do the same thing in summer, where you'll see an uptick in employment because kids, college kids coming out of school and they work at the pool or they work at McDonald's or whatever. You'd see a really stark increase in terms of jobs in May and June. Well, it's seasonably adjusted then too. Okay, we know this is going to be really short term, but that seasonable adjustment is interesting as well. Initial claims of unemployment have been ranging right around 200 to 220. They do a weekly number that came out actually just yesterday, and we're like 213. So initial claims for unemployment are right around that 200, 210, 220 mark. Continuing claims for unemployment are right around 1.8, 1.84, 1.85. That's a really interesting number. It's a really important number because I'm going to say we were close to hitting 2 million in terms of long-term basically that's long-term unemployment. Continuing claims are 6 months or greater. So if you've been unemployed for 6 months or greater, you're in that number. We almost hit 2 million last year. So it's a nice decline from that 2 million to 1.8. Challenger Rain Christmas comes out as a report every month. They talk about job cuts and job gains. So job cuts were 180%, 118% from January of last year, at about 108,000 job cuts in January. That number needs some context because we saw similar numbers of like October of last year, and it was almost double this number in February last year. Probably the most important number though is hiring, because Challenger covers two things: job cut announcements, and job hire announcements. Hiring plans were really only 5,306 for January. That's the lowest number since 2009. So that's the number to pay attention to, is the job openings number.
Mhm.
So that's kind of a summary of the recent state of the recent state of the job market. Here's what I'm seeing from my standpoint. I am seeing an increase in activity. Hiring managers hiring with intent. They're not going through 6 rounds of interviews and saying, "Oh, we're going to put their role on hold." You're seeing hiring with intent, where you're saying, "Okay, we're going through the interview cycle. We are going to hire for this role." Whereas this was, January, February last year, it was like they go through 7 rounds of interviews and they say, "Oh, we're going to put your role on hold."
Yeah.
So that's kind of the state of the state. And in that report, so you hit that follow button on my profile, you'll see that analysis of where the gains have been. And the gains have really been in healthcare, hospitality, education. There's been a nice uptick in professional business services. Probably the best thing is manufacturing side gain of 5,000 jobs. Manufacturing has seen a decrease in jobs 7 out of the last 8 months. So it was nice to see an uptick of 5,000 jobs. The story behind the story is that probably is data center work, the build out
Mm.
data centers, because construction was up just a little bit too. So the story behind the story is probably that's data center build outs or part of that.
Yeah. Tom,
Interesting.
what I'd love to do, and I know we'll have coffee talk next week, is to take these kinds of numbers, because this is not stuff this is not in my wheelhouse. There's other things I work on and stuff like that. But how we can kind of take these numbers and curate them towards the tech sector.
Yeah.
And what it means, and I think that'll help have some real good, what's the word I'm looking for? People will identify with it well and be able to relate. So cool. We are a bit over time right now. But this has been
Good stuff.
fantastic.
Yeah.
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 Thanks.
Real need to kind of pivot in a different direction and see how because all these numbers and everything, like Evan said, we're at the end of the day, we're trying to provide for ourselves and our families and stuff. And this is just another lens to look at all of this through.
Excellent. I'm happy to help.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
appreciate
Awesome.
it. Cool.
All right. Good talk.
Awesome.
Sorry.
Thanks, Tom.
It was a pleasure.
Were you going to say something else, Dave?
Just thank you. And if anybody else had anything they wanted to say before we wrapped, but I think we're good.
All right.
Thanks,
Good luck,
guys.
guys.
All right. Thanks so much. Cool.